So in this video, we are going to learn about the last topic in the 6th module, which is microprogram sequencer. Okay. A microprogram control unit should be viewed as consisting of two parts. We know that a control unit that is made out of microprograms, that is a control unit which can control different operations in a processor or in a computer by using different signals. If it is written with microprogram, then it is called as a microprogram control unit. Okay, so a control unit basically controlled using microprograms. It is said to consist of two parts, that is a control memory and an associated circuits that control the generation of the next address. So a microprogram control unit has two parts. One is a control memory which will store the micro instructions, that is the operations that need to be performed, and also it will have some associated circuits with it that will control the generation of next address. So after execution of the first instruction, micro instruction, which is the next instruction that need to be executed. So some circuit must be there in order to control or to move towards the next instruction or the next address of that instruction. So these two things are required in a microprogram control unit. Okay. The address generation part is called as a microprogram sequencer. So that circuit which actually generates this address is called as a microprogram sequencer because it sequences the micro instructions in a control memory. We know that in a control memory there are different control words, and these control words will have micro instructions and also some part of the address information to which the next micro instruction that need to be executed, right? So this control memory consists of certain control words. So in sequence these control words need to be read from this control memory. So it is a microprogram sequencer that will help to read these words from the control memory. So the microprogram sequencer which is attached to a control memory will inspect certain bits of the micro instruction from which it will determine the next address of the control memory. So we know or we saw in the previous video that our control memory is made out of ROM because all what these micro instructions or these words are actually stored permanently. So these micro instructions, or sometimes called as the control words, is nothing but a combination of micro instruction plus certain information about the next address that need to be loaded. So this control memory consists of certain control words, okay, and a part of it will have certain information about the next address. Okay, so it will have control words to initiate micro operations. So it could be some addition operation, subtraction operation, all those micro operations will be there. Apart from that, it will have a portion of it that will give information about the next address information, which is the next micro instruction that need to be executed. So that is being given to this microprogram sequencer or this next address generator, and with the help of certain other external input conditions, it will generate the next address, and that is given to the CAR or the control address register. From this control address register, it will load to the control memory, or it will read from the control memory the next micro instruction. Likewise it goes. So after the first micro instruction that has been read, which is the next instruction that need to be executed, that is actually found out by this microprogram sequencer. So that is the main functionality of a microprogram sequencer, to find out the next address that need to be executed. Okay, so for that we are going to design a circuit that will run and find out which is the next address that need to be executed. So a typical sequencer, in order to provide this address sequencing facility, it should have certain capabilities. So certain address sequencing capabilities that a sequencer have is that first one is it can increment the present address for control memory. So we know that our content address register or CAR, if it is incremented, then it will point to the next micro instruction. So the sequencer should have facility to increment the present address. This present address is present in the CAR. Then the next capability it should have is it should be able to branch to an address as specified by the address field of the micro instruction. We know that our programs might have certain subroutines also, but certain micro programs might have certain subroutines. So if in case you want to move to that subroutine, then your sequencer, the address sequencing capability should be there to branch to an address as specified by the address field of the micro instruction. So according to the micro program, if a branch is there, then it should be able to branch to that particular address location. That is the second capability required. Now the third capability required is it should branch to a given address if a specified status bit is equal to 1. So if a micro instruction specifies a branch, it should be able to branch, and also it should be able to branch based upon a status bit. If any of the status bit is given to be 1, then a branch operation need to be specified. A CAR is loaded with the address field of the micro instruction if the status bit is specified equal to 1, but goes to the next address in sequence if the status bit is equal to 0. That is, it will just move in the sequential order if no status bit is set. If a status bit is set, it should move to that branched location. Okay, so it should have a capability for that. Then the next capability a sequencer should have is it should be able to transfer the control to a new address as specified by an external source. So if there is some external source, and if that external source asks to point to a particular location and then execute a micro operation, then the address sequencer should have that facility also. Okay, then the last facility or capability that a sequencer should have is it has a facility for subroutine calls and returns. We already saw that if a subroutine call is there, the capability of a sequencer to branch to that particular location, and after executing that subroutine, it should be able to come back to the called program, right, the previous state. So it should have the facility for that also. So this may be accomplished by placing the return address into a stack. The normal procedure which we usually do, we already studied in the first module. In case of a subroutine call, what actually a processor will do, it will actually store the current executing or the next execution address into a stack, and then it will go and execute the subroutine, right? After the subroutine execution is completed, it will come back, look into the stack, and will take up the address from which the execution need to be continued. Same procedure. So all these are the 5 capabilities that is required by a sequencer which we are going to design. Okay, so keeping that in mind, we have to design a microprogram sequencer. So microprogram sequencer, it should have a MUX, right? We saw that it should have 5 capabilities. So definitely it should have a MUX that selects an address from the 4 sources and route it into a control address register CAR. So based upon the different possibilities which we discussed, we need to have a MUX that can select, and then according to that MUX selection value, address need to be loaded into the CAR. And the output from the CAR provides the address for the control memory. The content of the CAR are incremented and applied to MUX and to stack register file. The content of the CAR need to be incremented if in case there are no other conditions, but just to move to the next sequence. Then the register selected in the stack is determined by the stack pointer. There need to be a stack pointer. Then there need to be certain inputs. The inputs which we use here is I0, I1, I2, which we will see in detail what all those are. They specify the operation for the sequencer, and there should be an input T, which is a test point for a status bit. Okay, then there should be a clock pulse signal, and then there should be a provision to initialize, or there should be a provision to clear the address register. Okay, so based upon all this, this is the sequencer which we are going to design. Our microprogram sequencer will look like this. As we already said, it has got a MUX to select between the different possibilities. Okay, then we have a control address register. then we have a test bit called T. We have three inputs I1, I0 and I2. Then we have a clock pulse CP, just to have a positive clock pulse and a negative clock pulse, that is to have a synchronization between the sequence. Okay, then there should be a clear signal in case if this CAR need to be cleared. Then there should be an incrementer to increment the control address register so that it will point to the next control word. Then we need to have a stack register, and in order to control the stack register we need to have a stack pointer. Okay, so because we need the stack and stack register for the reason that our sequencer should be able to point to or it should be able to branch to a particular address location if a subroutine call occurs, and it should come back to the called program after that execution of subroutine. So for that purpose we have a stack register, and this stack register, what is the content of the stack register, is being controlled by this stack pointer. Okay, so based upon all this we have a function table. Okay, so these are the different possible values that can have in a function table. So I'm going to explain each case. So in exam you have to just draw this sequencer and the function table and the explanations which I have written. Okay, now I am going to explain each case of it with the same diagram, which you needn't actually write for the exam, but it is for your understanding. Okay, so let's see with the first case. Okay, in the first case, if I1 and I0 is 0 0, okay, that is I1 and I0 is 0 0, and I2 and T is don't care, that is whatever be the values here in I2 and the test, it is not dependent. In that case, the value at the value that appears at S0 and S1 is 0 0. If the value appears at S1 and S0 is 0 0, obviously out of this which one will be selected? 0 0 means the 0th value need to be selected, right? So if 0th value need to be selected, then it is an external address that is being loaded. Then that external address need to be loaded into the control address register. Correspondingly, that control address register will give that external address, and from that control memory we will read that particular external address and that micro instruction present in that external address. So that is how the first instruction will get executed. So let's see that first case. So in the first case we have I0 and I1 both as 0. Okay, so if it is 0 here, directly S1 is going to be 0, and if I0 is 0, then it is, if any of these input, if it is 0, then obviously the output of the AND gate will be a 0, right? So S0 and S1 will be 0 0. So it doesn't depend upon the value of T, or it doesn't depend upon the value of I2. So that is why it is being given as don't care. So based upon whether it is 1 or 0 or 1 or 0 here, whenever I1 is 0 and whenever I0 is 0, the condition here is this one. Okay, S1 and S0 will be 0 0, and if it is 0 0, then an external address need to be loaded into the mux, or the mux will select this external address. That external address is loaded into the control address register. Control address register will now move to the control memory to read that particular micro instruction which is present in that external address given. Okay, so that is the first case. Now in the second case, let's go back and see the second case. When I1 is 0 and I0 is 1, and both these cases are don't care condition, then the operation that is being performed here is a transfer from the register stack. The CAR is being loaded with, the address register is being loaded with the value from the stack register. Let's see that condition, which is case 2. In that case, we know that I1 is 0. See, I1 is 0. I0 is 1. I0 is 1. Okay, so definitely S1 is going to be 0 because directly I1 is given to the S1. If I0 is 1 here, one of the input here to the AND gate will be 1. And the other input is a complement of I1. It is a complement of I1. Since I1 is 0, we get a 1 here. And if any one of the input to an OR gate is 1, it means in its output is also 1. So it doesn't matter whether the test case or the t is 0 or 1. If it is 0 also, the output will be 1. If it is 1 also, the output will be 1. So that is the reason why here it is don't care. Okay, so here also it will be 1. When two ones are given to an AND gate, obviously the output will be 1. So here in S0 we get 1 here. So 0 1, which means the mux will be selecting the decimal number 1. 0 1, binary equivalent of the decimal value 1, right? So what is 1? 1 is point to the stack register, which means that there is an address that is being present in the stack register that need to be loaded into the control address register. So that is the reason why it is given that a transfer from the register stack. So whatever is the content of the stack register, that is being transferred into the control address register. Okay, so that is being read and then that is being loaded into the control address register. Okay, clear? Now next case is the third case, when you have 1 0 in I1 and I0. 1 0 in I1 and I0. Let's see the third case. 1 0. Okay, so 1 0, and if it is 1, obviously S1 will be 1 here. If it is 0 here, then one of the inputs will be 0. If one of the inputs to the AND gate is 0, we needn't even check what the other conditions are, because obviously that will be 0. So it is 1 0 here. So the binary equivalent of the decimal equivalent of the binary number 1 0 is nothing but 2, right? So if it is 2, then what is the operation that needs to be performed? It is given to an incrementer. So whatever is the content of this address register CAR, that is now being incremented to point to the next instruction. Okay, so the next instruction in the control word memory will be read and that will be executed. So in this case, that is in case of 1 0, it is a increment operation that is being performed in the control address register. So the first case, it was an external load. In the second case, it was a branching to a address location pointing to the stack, and in the third case it is the increment operation. Okay, so here also I2 is a don't care. It doesn't depend on I2 at all, because anyway I2 will be whatever be the value of I2. The condition here is that if it is 0, this is obviously going to be 0, so this signal won't go on. So that is the reason why I2 is don't care, and test case is also don't care, because of the case that if anyway if it is 0 or 1, it doesn't matter. Here it is going to be 0. So that is the reason why it is don't care here. So the third case is also over. Now the fourth case. The fourth case is when both I1 and I0 is 1, what is the operation that needs to be performed? Okay, in the fourth case, when both the conditions I1 and I0 are 1, with the change that I2 will be 0 and test will also be 0. Okay, so here we are going to change it as 0 and 0 here in test and I2. If it is 1 here, obviously S1 will be directly 1. If it is 1 here, I0, one of the inputs to the AND gate will be 1, and the other input to the AND gate is 1, its complement 0 is given here. Test here is 0, so 0 plus 0 or 0 is nothing but 0. So if one of the input is 0, then the output of the AND gate will also be 0. So here also it is 1 0, 1 0, its decimal equivalent is nothing but 2. So this operation will also go to an increment operation. Okay, here another case that need to be taken considered here is, here our I2 value, here I2 value is 0. Okay, so if I2 value is 0, obviously if any one of the input to this AND gate is 0, then this push operation won't be happening. Okay, but let's go to this operation. Okay, here it is 0, so this 0 is going to this particular AND gate, then definitely this AND gate is also not operational because it is also 0, so pop operation will also not happen here. Okay, so you needn't explain each and everything clearly. You can just write down these specific test cases, and accordingly what is the functionality that is happening in the control address register. That is all what is expected from you to write in the exams. Okay. And the fifth case, in the fifth case, when I1 and I0 is 1 1 itself, I2 is 0 itself, but our test case has been changed to 1. In that case, what will be the output we receive at S1 and S0? Let's see that I1 and I0 is 1 1. So I1 is 1, directly S1 will be 1. I0 is 1, so one of the inputs to the AND gate is 1. The negation of 1 is 0, that is given to the OR gate, but here test case is 1. So if any one of the input to an OR gate is 1, then obviously the output will be 1. So 2 1s are being given to this AND gate, so you get an output of 1 here. So S1 and S0 both are 1. 1 1, which is a decimal equivalent of which is a binary equivalent of the decimal value 3. So in case of 3, what is the thing that need to be done? It is a branch address, right? So it is a branch address. In that case, what is the functionality that need to be done? In case of branch address, let's see the case. See, in 1 1, this is transfer the branch address. You have to transfer the branch address to the content address register. So in order to transfer that branch address, how do you get that branch address? So let's see that. Now in this case we have in the fifth case we have both our I2 as 0 itself, so this remains 0, so you don't have anything here. But in case of this AND gate, let's see, our test case is our I0, which is being given here to this AND gate is nothing but it is 1 here, and in this case the next one, that is the negation of I1, which is 0, that 0 is also given here, so obviously this one will also be 0. So here also the push and pop operation, it won't work here. So definitely the branch addresses, whatever is the branch address that is being given here, that will be loaded to the control address register. So suppose if the micro program consists of a branch address to a specific subroutine, that subroutine's address will be here in the branch address BRI. So that is now loaded into the control address register. Okay, so that the control address register will point to that branch address, and the next instruction that will be executed will be that branch operation, right? Okay, now let's see the next case. In the sixth case, here we have both all I1, I2 and I0 as 1 and test case itself as 0. In that case, what will be the operation that need to be done? We will get S1 and S0 as 1 0. Let's see how it comes. So we know that I1 is 1, so obviously S1 will be 1. I0 is also 1, so one of the AND gate input is 1, but I1's negation is being here given as one of the inputs to OR, and also the test case is 0, so this both 0 0 give rise to an OR of 0. So if one of the inputs to the AND gate is 0, obviously the output will be 0. So 1 0 is nothing but 2, right? It is the binary equivalent of the decimal number 2. So 2 is nothing but our increment operation, just like the increment operation which we have seen in the earlier third case and the fourth case. So this is also going to increment the current address of the CAR. Okay. Now the last case, when all the values are 1. This is the special case of subroutine calling. Okay. So when all the values are 1, I1 is 1, so S1 is also 1. I0 is 1, so one of the input to AND gate is 1. Its negation 0, one of the input is here to the OR gate 0. So but test case is 1. So 0 and 1 or you get 1. So 1 1 here, then it will be 1 1 here. So if it is 1 1, what is it? It is a branch address, right? So it is a branch address, but there is a small difference here. What the difference here is that it is I2 here, right? So I2 is also 1. So what happens if I2 is 1? See this AND operation. The first value to this AND operation is 1. The second value to this AND operation is nothing but I1, that is also 1. The third value to this AND operation is I0, which is also 1. And the fourth value to this AND operation is test, which is also 1, which means that the output of this AND gate is 1, which means the push operation is going to be enabled. Okay, so when push operation is going to be enabled, what will be happening? When push operation is going to be enabled, then that particular address is going to be, the first thing that going to be doing is the stack pointer register will increment. That is, the stack pointer will increment. That incremented value is now given to the stack register. Okay, so this stack pointer is incremented, so stack register is now pointing to the next incremented value, and that particular branch, whatever was the content, that was being written to the stack register. So what is that thing that is going to be written? Let's see what is going to be written. See, the thing that is going to be written to the stack register is the current value in the control address register plus 1 is going to be written to the stack pointer, and then CAR is now loaded with the branch operation. So what is actually happening here? This is the functionality of a subroutine that is happening. So this case which we saw earlier was a normal branch that was being given by an external source. So whenever an external source gives you a branch, a transfer to a particular location without a subroutine code, that is what was happening in this case. But in this case, what is happening is a branch to a subroutine. So whenever you branch to a subroutine, what all things you require? You need to load the control address register with that branch address, and also you need to point that stack register with the next instruction that needs to be executed, right? So that is what has been happening here. The stack register is pushed with the current address plus 1 so that it can come back and continue the execution. So that is why here in the last case there is a push operation that has been enabled. First, this increment operation has been enabled so that the stack pointer gets incremented to point to a new location in the stack register, and to that new location a write operation has been done. This write operation will write CAR plus 1 address to this particular value. Okay, and whenever a pop operation is present, what it will do, the stack pointer register will decrement, and it will read the content of this particular stack register. So whenever this pop is enabled, okay, so whenever in this case if it is this I0 is 0, then it will become 1 here. So this will be 1, and then this one if 1. So both, if it is, this is 0 1's case, let's see that case, 0 1. Okay, so here in this 0 1, that is case 2, that is, it is a transfer from the register stack. Okay, in 0 1th case, here what happens is that this I0 is 1, so I0 is 1. This I0 is loaded here as one of the input to this AND gate, and I1 is 1, so this I1 is also, this I1 is directly given, this I1, and it's sorry, one second, let me just see in this 0 1's case we have one of the input I0 as I0 here is 1, so 1 is loaded directly here. Then we have I1's negation here, which is also 1. So 1 is loaded to this AND gate. So if it is 1 1 here, which means that the pop operation is enabled. When pop operation is enabled, there is a decrement that has been happening in the stack point register. So the stack pointer will decrement. Why it decrements? Because it will pop the content of that register, stack register. It is reading. So basically pop operation is nothing but reading, and push operation is writing. So you are reading that content of that stack register. Okay, so that is the reason why here in that the second case, the condition that has been happening here is whenever the content of the stack register is loaded to the CAR, okay, so it is a pop operation that has been happening, a reading from the stack register has been happening, okay. So these are the different 7 cases of how a microprogram sequencer works. So you needn't explain all these 7 cases, it is just for the understanding purpose. I have explained with all the different cases. You have to just remember this sequence diagram and the different cases that has been depicted in the function table. That's all you need to write for the exam with the functionality of each thing, but you needn't separately mention each case in detail as I've explained now. Okay.